Hey, fifth grade. Today for our poetry lesson, we're going to be reading two poems. Campfire Lullaby by Zoe Mason and Night Songs by Molly Jordan. Here are two poems that almost put me to sleep, not because they're boring, but because both eighth grade poets use such sensory language that their poems work like lullabies. I think you'll see what I mean in just a moment. Follow along with me as I read Campfire Lullaby first and then Night Songs. Eyelids heavy, arms hang, legs numb, jaw drops. Fire blinds, eyes stare, drums beat, constant. Lulling, lulling. Dogs stroked, hands licked, heads propped and caught as it slips. Moon's out, sun's down, voices sparkle, lake's reflection. Body melts, pine needles sting, darkness falls, eyes stop. And now night songs, if you're still awake. Night songs. Unable to sleep, I face the ceiling and listen to the night. Owls sing outside, hooting soft solos, then duets. The house sings and a creaking song of heaters and pipes as I wait. My sister breathes deeply, deeply in the next room. From downstairs, a click of computer keys serenades me and joins the song. Wind rustles through pine trees in the darkness outside my window. A choir of whispering voices begins. Night songs lull me from wandering thoughts into the comfortable doze between consciousness and sleep. Soon I am gone, faded into dream, but the night songs play on. All right, so before I have you go back in and analyze, I want to point out a few things to you guys. The first thing that I want you to notice about both of these poems is that both poets invented a form and then stuck with that form throughout the poem. So in Campfire Lullaby, you have 4 lines in every single stanza throughout the entire poem. That's what I mean by inventing a form and sticking with it. You see the same thing over here in Night Songs. So you see 4-line poems or 4-line stanzas in every single part of it. So 4 lines in each stanza. The other thing I think you probably already noticed is that there is no capitalization at all in Night Songs. That was a style decision by this poet. And I feel like the reason she decided to go with all lowercase is that it adds a calm and quiet tone to the poem. If you think about how we draw emphasis or shout when we're texting or typing, we use all caps. So I feel like that knowledge was probably part of the decision to use all lowercase letters in this poem. So again, they stuck to a form, or they invented their form, and then they stuck through it consistently. So you can see that Molly Jordan still punctuated her poem the way we would prose, but because there are no capitals, it kind of looks funny in some places. Like, for example, here where it says faded into dream, and that's the end of the sentence, and then this is the beginning, but there's no capital there. So just wanted to point that out. And that is an option for you as a poet to play around with things like capitalization and punctuation if it accentuates the effect of the poem that you're writing. The next thing that I wanted to point out to you guys is that both of these poems use really, 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 really strong diction. Diction is words, okay? So they didn't use overused or general words. They were very specific. And where they got specific was in their adjectives and verbs. And then nouns also. You guys know that a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. An adjective is a describing word, and a verb is an action word. So I just want to point out a few of those. The first thing that I want you to notice is that in Campfire Lullaby, most of her lines consist of a noun and then a verb, a noun and then a verb, a noun and then a verb, a noun and then a verb. So again, in addition to inventing a form and sticking with it, she kind of played around with parts of speech too and kept that consistent throughout the poem. Then if we look at, night songs, you're going to see some strong sensory verbs and adjectives and nouns here as well. So she was very, very, very specific in her word choice. So you can see, she's naming what she hears. Owls sing outside, hooting soft solos. Again, we get some alliteration here. Then duets. The house sings. Again, we're seeing all kinds of figurative language here too. That's personification. I want to talk to you about another device that we're seeing here. I pointed out the alliteration, which is a sound device. It's the repetition of beginning consonant letters, but we also see some onomatopoeias here as well. Actually, we see quite a few. So right here, we see it in hooting. And by the way, onomatopoeias are words that sound like what they mean. So hooting is the word, but hoot is also the sound that owls make. And so the word and the definition, the word sounds like the definition of the word. Okay, so hooting. And then we also see another onomatopoeia here where we see creaking. That's a sound word. We see it down here with click. And we also see alliteration there too. Click of computer keys. You hear the ka sound being repeated. So it's onomatopoeia, but it also is included in alliteration in this instance. If we go down here, we see the word rustles. We see that is an onomatopoeia, another sound word. Whispering is an onomatopoeia, and so is lull. And I think that's really it as far as like what I wanted to draw your attention to. When you go back in and you analyze for this poem, I'm going to be having you look at sensory words. And I just kind of wanted to pass on kind of some fancy words for talking about your senses. If we're talking about visual, we're talking about things that you can see. If we're talking about visceral, we're talking about things you can touch. And if we're talking about aural, we're talking about things you can hear. I will continue to use see, touch, and hear, but I'd like to introduce you guys to some more complex words that you may run into as your schooling continues or as you go deeper with content. So today, when you go back into these two poems, I want you to mark the lines that you can feel, see, and hear. And again, we've talked about this before, but I don't want you to make a comment and say, I can see this. What I want you to do is I want you to highlight the words or the phrases or the lines that allow you to see something because it contains visual details. And then I want you to comment and tell me exactly what you can see. But I want you to remember What we know about William Carlos Williams, that your brain is filling in details. The poet can give you concrete objects, and then your brain fills in the extra details. I want to know about those extra details. So don't just repeat the lines from the poem when you comment on it. And don't just tell me, I can see this. I want to know more than that. I want to know exactly what you can see. If you can hear something, I want to know exactly what you can hear and why you can hear it. If you can feel something, if we're talking about touch, I want to know specifically what you are feeling. Okay? So I want you to describe it to me in detail, and I want you to be very specific with your comments. Now, as you know, we're also working on writing our own free verse poems. So I always like to tie what we're reading back into that. And so pay attention to parts of speech when you write. Every part of speech is important in good writing across the genres, but nouns and verbs are the workhorses. Nothing beats a specific noun combined with a sensory verb. When you revise and polish your poems, look at your verbs. Are they strong and evocative? Should you consult a thesaurus for verb help? All right, guys, I love and miss you. Please let me know if you have any questions or if you need anything. I can't wait to see you in person again someday soon.